Hello and welcome back to Warcraft Daily for today, the 24th of February 2014. So in today's news we have quite a few different things, mostly some different tweets about Warlords of Draenor, but also, and I guess more importantly, a bit of a clarification about Proving Grounds. So as it turned out, the interviews that came out, well, they were only a few lines long and they were translated, so there was a little bit of misinformation in there, meaning that Watcher, aka Ian Hazakostas, made a new post that fully explains how Proving Grounds are going to be used in Warlords. So first of all, he said that they will be having level 100 normal and heroic dungeons. This is something we already knew. Then he also said that there will be no additional requirements to queue for normals other than your item level and your character's level, and that questing gear will actually be enough to get you into normal dungeons and scenarios. Normal dungeons and scenarios will also get you into LFR, so basically the casual player gear progression is going to be just like it has been in Mists of Pandaria. You level up to 100, you do dungeons, you do LFR, you're done. And because in Mists there were no level 100 normals and level 90 normals, basically level 90 heroics were as hard as normal modes would be anyway, so there is no change to the ultra casual sort of gear progression, whereas if you are trying to get into raids and stuff like that, well, honestly, the heroics are basically a new tier of content in a way. Of course, I don't want to say a new tier of content, because they're not. They should have been there in MOP, but hey, you know what I mean. So the heroic dungeons themselves are going to be more challenging than the normal version. That's another thing he said, which is, I guess, rather obvious. But more importantly, you will need to get a silver Proving Ground medal to get into the heroic Warlords of Draenor dungeons, which is completely cool. Then he also said that item level doesn't cover you 100% when you're trying to filter people out, as you could, for an example, get a tank who has never tanked before, but they still get in because of their item level. They also said that they didn't want to make heroics only for pre-made groups, as the barrier to entry may be a little bit too high in terms of convenience. So therefore, this Proving Ground solution is the best compromise, and they understand that the Proving Grounds will need to be updated and made significantly better than they are now. So that is definitely good to see, actually. And one thing that's probably worth saying, and it just sort of crossed my mind that maybe some of you haven't watched the previous interview video, the Proving Grounds will be used to gate your way into heroic content or heroic dungeons. So you need to get a silver medal in Proving Grounds to get into heroics. Just in case you missed one of the previous videos, I think it was the interview video that came out on Saturday that covers that. But overall, this is very, very good news, and it's definitely indicating that the heroics are going to be significantly harder than Mists of Pandaria, which of course makes sense because while Mists of Pandaria dungeons were heroic in name, they were really just glorified normals, and Blizzard have even basically said this themselves. So yeah, all in all, some very good news, and with that said, let's move on to a few different tweets for the day. So Celestian said that there is a massive flood of information coming soon. It's currently at 13,000 pages, or not pages, 13,000 words, or 33 pages. I think my job as a YouTuber would be made a lot harder if it was 13,000 pages. That would be very fun to skim my way through. So this is very good, and honestly, it is beginning to sound like Warlords is, at least, not itself is coming soon, but the beta, honestly, I'm thinking it's coming out next Tuesday, i.e. tomorrow. I'm pretty sure that'll happen, and actually it's probably worth saying, in terms of the beta, I don't know how I'm going to get in or anything like that, so we'll play it by ear. Chances are, as soon as it comes out, I'll stick out a video saying, hey, if you have a key and you want to donate it, then I'll do a bunch of content. So that's likely the first beta video you'll see from me, is me asking for a key for the damn thing. The fun of being kind of at the whims to RNG. Alright, so there's that tweet sorted. At any rate, we're going to get a whole bunch of information, so there'll be lots of stuff to cover, and that should be a ton of fun. And then also he said that the item squish also affects the health formula for monsters. So comparing health doesn't really give you the whole picture. What you actually need to do is compare the relative damage instead, and he also said that we need to wait to see more details. So basically, it seems like the ratios of damage and health are maybe tweaked just a little bit or something with the item squish, and we don't have the full information. One thing that's also worth saying is that the alpha, I guess alpha, maybe it's beta, whatever, the footage that I put up in the last 2 days is from a bunch of press events. Those classes are not 100% finished at the minute. So that is probably why there are maybe one or two changes which seem a bit odd. Another thing that's probably worth saying, like, a lot of people were criticizing the people who were playing those characters because they were clicking and things like that. Maybe it's just worth saying that they were just, like, maybe handed a pre-made character. It maybe wasn't a class they normally play. So, I don't know, cut them some slack. At least we got to see some cool footage, right? Alright, so the next thing Celestian said is that item levels are not changing, only stats are changing. It's probably worth clearing that up in case anyone had any confusion about the issue. Alright, so let's move on to the next tweet from Celestian. When he was talking about the Prot Warrior DPS stance that's coming in Warlords of Draenor, he said that basically it wouldn't take a lot of changing to make a Prot Warrior deal DPS, and it would actually take a lot of changes to make, say, an Arms or Fury Warrior a tank. Also, he said that Prot is one of those classes, or specs, that they just feel would actually lend itself pretty well to this modified DPS stance. And also, I guess there is sort of precedent there, in terms of a warrior who uses their shield as a weapon. Look at the Crusader in Diablo 3, and then just in history, a lot of times, shields were used as weapons. So, it does absolutely make sense having a kind of, well, it's called the Gladiator stance. I think that's actually a really cool change for the game. And one thing I want to say here is that it's another source of class differences. I don't know why I said claff there, because claffs are not a thing. Anyway, great source of class differentiation, and this is very important in the game. Because I think if you play a warrior and you know that, oh hey, warrior has this cool special thing, then that, I suppose, provides a little bit more value. And the greater the degree of those differences that all the various classes have, then the more unique everything feels in the game. So this is just another step in that direction. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, I want a paladin tank DPS spec. Why can't I have that? Well, because they just don't think it fits well with their vision of a paladin. And hopefully their response to that is to just add in something that makes paladins feel a lot different in another way. Or maybe tweak something, or do some cool talent. Basically, it's all about making the classes feel different, and I think that one of the main criticisms that World of Warcraft has had since, say, the Burning Crusade, is that there has been a decent bit of class homogenization, in an effort to make things balanced, fair, and a little bit more even, and also just a little bit easier to balance in terms of numbers. Some classes have had abilities which are maybe equivalencies to each other. And that has been great for balance, but maybe not so good for how different classes feel. While adding things like this in for the warrior is that really going to help? Another good example is for the hunter. There is one, this was a BlizzCon talent, so no idea if it's still in the game, but it basically was like a DPS boost to a few of your abilities if you didn't have a pet out, which means that you're essentially a ranger, instead of the traditional bow and pet style hunter. So various things like this are probably coming for various different classes in Warlords, and it will be great to just see that extra bit of flavor given to classes. I think that's really cool. So overall, I'm just in a very good mood about how talents are going, and that kind of thing. Alright, so let's move on to another tweet from Watcher himself. He said in relation to the Proving Ground requirement that, yes, it's not going to help with, say, AFKers in a dungeon or something like that, but he did say that AFKers are really something that needs a different solution. Honestly, it's a bit of a hard solution, really. I'm not particularly sure how you can solve the AFK problem, because often people will just go and hit the W key every minute. And that's fine, and honestly, there's a lot of people who will get themselves killed in an LFR just so they don't have to try. That's definitely an interesting problem. I know some people would say, well, okay, maybe if you die, you get less points or something. Well, no, because if you have a bad healer, then you're screwed. I guess that actually what would probably work best is that there is a percentage activity that is monitored throughout the fight. So let's just say that one keystroke every 5 seconds counts as being active, and you need to be active for 70% of the fight. That would at least ensure that people can't just, hit the space bar, walk off, make themselves a cup of tea, come back, and find that the boss has been killed for them. So I guess that would be a pretty decent solution. Alright, so the next thing that Watcher said, and actually the final tweet that he had for this round of tweets, is that they are adding in, or at least thinking of adding in, a voice over volume slider. You know what? That is absolutely good. And here's the reason why I think it's good. Because often I turn down my combat effects because I really like the World of Warcraft music. But that also means that I can't really hear voices and things like that too well. So if I could have the voiceovers being separate from sound effects, I think it would be very good. So overall, I'd like that. He did say though that they can't guarantee it being in there for patch 6.0. Okay, next we have a tweet from Halinka. He said that the difference between item levels in PvE and PvP is their #1 problem to fix in both 5.4.7 and Warlords of Draenor. And actually, with 5.4.7, they did really do that. I mean, the new PvP gear is item level 550, and in PvE it's going to be weaker than a PvE piece of the same item level, meaning that is pretty much their goal, right? Which is a good thing, so hopefully that will all pan out well. Maybe there'll be a few more tweaks needed in Warlords, but overall it's a good move. And then another thing that's worth saying is that Halinka actually spent all of last week in Korea with various fan sites and things like that, so perhaps we will get to see some interviews. I've been looking at a few of the Korean sites, I haven't found any of them, and I'm sure that I will have a great time with the Korean to English translator whenever that comes out. Yay. Okay, so finally we have one last tweet from Laura, and he said that they are going to be doing a pass on racials, but not yet. There is more information coming soon. And that is really it for today's World of Warcraft news. All in all, lots of good stuff, and I cannot wait to see what this massive flood of information that Celestian has been talking about is actually going to pan out as being. That was a really sloppy sentence. And anyway, because I just did a terrible sentence, it's probably time to end the show before things get any more diabolically awful. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, then please consider liking, subscribing, and checking out my Patreon page. And with all my things pimped, I will see you next time.